Hello. I have got a gigantic pile of books sitting here, and there's more as well. I've also got podcasts to recommend, and they're on the subject of creativity and writing. I'm going to be doing a talk on that in a workshop in about 10 days from now. By the time you watch, of course, that could be completely a matter of the past. But I have pulled together this list of fantastic books for those of you who want to write. And I'm thinking of writing not just as words on a page, but I'm opening out the whole topic to be writing for script writing, for film, for radio, for performance poetry where the words are spoken, for all kinds of ways of recording words and sounds and communication. So it's quite a wide brief. And I'm going to be recommending some things that are for 3 different levels. Anyway, I'm thinking about writing for yourself, what's helpful for you, and even the spiritual element of that. And then beyond that, your friends and family, and then beyond that, the wide world. Those of us who don't actually know each other in the flesh, so to speak, we haven't met. A stranger that picks up your book or your film, sits in the dark, watching a performance of spoken word or whatever, and yet what you have written down actually is communicating with them. So for all these things and those different levels of, for yourself, those around you, for complete strangers, here are resources that I warmly recommend. Let's start off with the biggie, The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. This has deservedly been, I think it's 25 years or more, in print. You should have no trouble getting a copy. It's a workbook that takes you through getting creative flow, how to keep being encouraged, how to keep getting yourself excited to write or make films. In fact, she has made this as a book, as a resource for across the whole arts. Okay, Julia Cameron, do get it as a workbook, work through it. It will get rid of the fear of the blank page forever. That's what it did for me. One of her famous things is morning pages, writing something every single morning. So you may have heard of that. Then secondly, something to resource our creative life. That whole question of where am I going to find the time, the resources, how can I make it pay, how can I make a career out of it, how can I do anything really with my art. Daily Rituals by Mason Curry, Women at Work. This is specifically for women so that it covers areas like the family and the home, which still tend to fall very much on the shoulders of women. But these are a couple of 100 years of women making, sculpting, dancing, choreographing, filming, the whole range of the arts. And each has a little bio and how they find the time and how they manage to keep making. And just reading it is like a crowd of people around you telling you, encouraging you, saying this is how I made it work, and it should give you ideas. Very practical, very readable. Now, the third one I want to give a recommendation to for basically anybody interested in writing and definitely in poetry is Anthony Wilson. He edited this book, Life-Saving Poems by Blood Axe, 2015. It came from a book, a blog. The book came from a blog, and it's a memoir also of how he came through a very serious illness and recovered. So he gives a list of well-known poets, really from the last 20 years. So if you feel you aren't conversant with what's happening in the poetry field for a while, maybe you've got familiar with the classics or had them forced upon you at school, this will give you a poet and then his accompanying words of how he came across the work and what it meant to him and his whole journey into writing, not only as a poet himself but also as a writing tutor. Very readable, introduces you to a range of different poets because he will use a different poet each time. Now, websites. One amazing one is one single text that is explored in many different art forms, and it is the Bible. It is www.sparkandecho.org. You will be amazed at how the words of one, admittedly very large book, can inspire so many different expressions and communications. And the work is done by people of all faiths and none. Right, painting and poetry collaboration. I've done this myself. I want to give you an example, which is my collaboration with Jacqueline Stewart. and that's www.jackandstuart.com. You look at her 2017 artwork and scroll down to find Advent reflections rather, and at the bottom there's a series of videos. So we collaborated together. Mostly she did all the pictures, and mostly the words are by me, and they're read out together with a video of the artwork, and it becomes something slightly different. And if you're into making films, I want to recommend a platform to find film festivals and submit your short films to them, and that is filmfreeway.com, all one word. Back to books. Right, Mark Oakley, The Splash of Words, Believing in Poetry, by Canterbury Press, published in 2016. It's accessible, but it's thought-provoking, and it's a read in how poetry is spiritually helpful. And again, it has a variety of poets and then thoughts about that poem. Next, Stephen Fry, The Ode Less Travelled. You've probably heard of this. It's a workbook on taking you through the metre and the rhyme, the various technical aspects of poetry, but he makes it interesting and fun and gives you little exercises to do. So I warmly recommend it. Very easy to find. Your library will probably have a copy. Almost every second-hand bookshop I've been into has a copy because it sold like crazy when it came out, and therefore it's eventually people have read it and passed it on to bookshops. You should have no trouble getting this. I'd also like to recommend a book which I don't have a copy of. I read it in the Scottish Poetry Library, and it's W.N. Herbert, Writing Poetry, published by Routledge in 2009. It is expensive, so do try Poetry Library specifically, and it was part of an Open University course, so you may find someone you know has studied in the Open University might just have a copy. We're going to keep on with this inspirational because the people I'm speaking to in 10 days are gathered together with a certain element of faith. So this is a really expert, very short book, as you can see, by an editor in that field, Vanita Hampton Wright. It's called The Art of Spiritual Writing, How to Craft Prose That Engages and Inspires Your Readers. Published Loyola Press, Chicago, 2013. And she's a very experienced editor and writer, and we'll walk you through the process. How to Become a Professional Poet, if that's your interest. How to Be a Poet by Joe Bell and Jane Cummane is one you really should get. It's published by the Nine Arches Press, 2017, and it is easy to read, practical and insightful on the poetry world. Walks you through the process. Now, if you're interested in memoir or the influence of words as a possible healing, this is a great book. The Black Rainbow, How Words Healed Me, My Journey Through Depression, by Rachel Kelly, and it's published by Yellow Kite Books in 2014. An incredibly well-written book about her experience of very sudden onset, completely debilitating depression, and how she came through that, and how one of the first things that began to help her and helped her through were actually poetry, words. Now, one of the things about writing is you can end up buying endless books on how to do this part of writing, this part, all the theory books. So I'm not trying to have too many of those in this mix. But here is one that covers a lot of ground. Will Storr, The Science of Storytelling. What a perfect name to write that book, Will Storr. So I recommend this, fairly recent publication. It's published by William Collins in 2019, and it gives you the theories from, I think, quite a few writing courses all put together into one. But the best training, of course, is doing the writing. Messily, chaotically, whatever way comes to you, doing that is going to be what's really going to make you into a writer. Songwriting. If you want to write songs, I've got a couple of amazing books for you. This is astonishing. It is The Isle of Noises and it's called Conversations with Great British Songwriters, published in 2013 by Picador. So because of that, you're going to have a certain limitation on which songwriters are included, but as you can see from the cover, there's a lot of really well-known names there, covering a variety of music styles. Very accessible, written out as an interview. It reads as a chatty together with the songwriter. You will also see some pictures which have words written on the back of an envelope, and you can see words crossed out, and exercise books of lyrics and playlists, and it gives you that idea that when you go to write, it doesn't just fall into your brain and you put it automatically in the page and it's absolutely perfect. That's a very terrifying expectation if you have that of yourself. Don't. And the second one is Heart and Soul, The Craft of Songwriting, which is by Chris Bradford, published by Sanctuary Publishing Limited in 2005. It is more technical. It has different chapters on different areas of songwriting. Let's just have a quick look, but lots of examples and chats with people who are writing. So you've got topics like the business of songwriting, how to promote it as well, and music publishers, songwriting organisations, history of the popular song, working with artists, the producer, the art of collaboration, and so forth. Creative blocks and how to break them. Excellent book. Now, I'm going to have to move this block to one side to make space for a few more. Okay, for writing evocatively, I want to recommend a cookery book. Nigella Lawson, How to Eat. The Pleasures and Principles of Good Food by Shadow and Windlass, 1998. There's almost no photos, but there are word pictures of taste and culture and travel, and it's a good thick book. Tremendously popular, should be easy to get second hand, and you probably have a copy on your own shelves in your house. A great way to write evocatively. Okay, a good coach for that. Now, what else have we got? We got Comedy and Prayer, not often maybe put together. Frank Skinner, A Comedian's Prayer Book by Hodder and Stoughton, 2021. It's just 105 pages, but it puts two interesting things together, and you get to listen in on his prayers and thoughts about praying, and his conversations with God and thinking it through. Preparing your work for an agent. Once you've got to the point where you are writing, you've written a lot of material, and you have a couple of people that you've, maybe 2 to 6 people, and you've formed a critique group. That's where you read each other's work and critique each other. This prepares your work because they will see all sorts of things in your work that are commendable, fantastic, and then also need to be tweaked. So the advantage of a critique group is that you get all these different facets of opinions on what you have written. And this book is called The Writing and Critique Group Survival Guide. How to give and receive feedback, self-edit and make revisions. And this is very practical, how to form your group and how to work it and have it functioning well. Her agent is credited. My agent, Jessica Faust, held my hand through the contract phase. Okay, Jessica Faust, remember that name. It's going to turn up again in a moment. So those are the books. Now I want to recommend some podcasts. Just before, having finished with the books, I want to recommend a magazine, Paris Review. It's been published since 1953, and since then it has been interviewing writers in depth. So you're going to find a lot of writers that have been famous from that time on, from the 1950s, interviewed. Paris Review. It is a magazine. You will get excerpts online, and sometimes I've seen them myself in secondhand bookshops there to buy. Podcasts. Podcasts are another way in which you can have access to all the range of knowledge and expertise from people who write and people who edit and so forth, the whole publishing world. I want to recommend a few. I want to recommend For Making Art and Spiritual, the podcast Makers and Mystics. They have currently got over 260 episodes, and each one is with somebody of a different kind of creativity. So a lot of them are artists and many are songwriters, because it is presented by Stephen Roach, who himself is a songwriter and performer. Author interviews, I also want to recommend a really fantastic podcast. Writing with Hattie Crystal, 54 episodes. Really well-known professional authors. This is recorded in the UK, so there's a special emphasis on those. They're recorded in their homes, they're chatting, and at the same time they're talking you through what their process has been and their writing career. And you will learn interesting things, such as a novelist may have a completely different style of approach to writing one novel to the next. So it helps you see that there isn't just one way to do everything. Another great one is the podcast Always Take Notes. This is also interviews with a wide range of UK writers, and it's got an interesting spread. It's got the writers and also the booksellers and also the editors and the agents. For an insider view on publishing, I want to recommend the podcast The Shit No One Tells You About Writing. That is actually the title of it. And each week somebody brings a book proposal and gets writing and publishing experts to critique it and say what they feel about that. So if you're getting ready to take a manuscript around agents, this would be great to listen to. Comedy script writing, if you're wanting to write for comedy and especially for broadcast, there is the podcast Sitcom Geeks with James Carey and Dave Cohen. They recently stopped because they're doing more other ways of writing comedy and tutoring it, but it's pretty recent and it is full of insights into the trade. And Agents Viewpoints, I remember I mentioned Jessica Faust. She does a frequent YouTube video together with another agent from the same agency, and it's called Bookends Literary Agency, and it will give you all the inside story on manuscripts as they come across their desk and what is right about it and wrong about it, how to present it best. And if you're concerned about dyslexia, just want to say there are some outstanding examples of fantastic writers who were severely dyslexic. One of them is A.A. Gill, the food critic. Fantastic writing, and he could talk about great things from literature and so forth because he had a fantastic education, but yet he was so tied up with dyslexia that he would have to phone his copy in. Okay, but he also, like any good food review, it talks about society at the time and it's a comment on what's going on more than just the food, because food of course is related to so many more things in society and in culture. Secondly, I want to recommend Stephen J. Cannell. He is probably best known for writing and launching the A-Team and the Rockford Files, 21 Jump Street, but he was prolific as a scriptwriter for TV series and created 40 of them together in the 1980s and 1990s, and he tells a story really well on a YouTube video which I will make a link to, and it's so encouraging as for any writer, but if you are dyslexic you'll find certain parts in it that will apply especially to you. And if you want a film that's been made by a dyslexic writer which is just phenomenal, I recommend Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe. which is great. Written by a lady called Fanny Flagg, Flagg. She also wrote the novel on which the film is based. So I hope that all of these things get your creative juices going, keep you encouraged, wanting to write, energized, finding solutions to anything that's posed as a temporary block or blockage, and that you just keep going and enjoy it more and more. Bye for now.